Ladies and gentlemen, is a force more powerful than hatred, stronger than revenge, and deeper than any pain we have ever experienced. That force is forgiveness wrapped in love. And I promise you, if you can grasp this truth today, it will change your life forever. Many of us carry wounds from the past. Betrayals, disappointments, and deep scars left by the words or actions of others. Some have been hurt so badly that the thought of forgiving feels impossible. But let me tell you something. Forgiveness is not for them. It is for you. You see, unforgiveness is a prison. It locks you inside the pain of yesterday and steals the joy of today. It's like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. But when we choose to forgive, when we choose love over bitterness, something miraculous happens. We are set free. Today I want to take you on a journey to healing, to restoration, to real freedom. Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you will understand why forgiveness is not an option, it's a necessity. And more importantly, you will experience the incredible power of love in ways you never imagined. Love is not just a feeling, it's a choice. It's the decision to release someone from the debt of their wrongdoing, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. God has called us to love, even when it's hard, even when it feels unfair. And why? Because He first loved us. Think about the love God has shown. Despite our failures, our mistakes, and the many times we have fallen short, He never stops loving us. He forgives us completely, not halfway, not begrudgingly, but fully. And if He can do that for us, how can we withhold forgiveness from others? But let's be real, some wounds run deep, some hurts feel impossible to let go of. That's why forgiveness is not something we do in our own strength. It's something we do with God's help, and when we surrender that pain, when we release that person, when we truly say, I forgive, something powerful happens. We are healed. Forgiveness does not mean we condone the wrong. It doesn't mean we forget or that we allow someone to continue hurting us. But it does mean we refuse to be held hostage by the pain. It means choosing freedom. So, I ask you today, who do you need to forgive? Who is holding space in your heart, not because you love them, but because of the pain they caused? It's time to let it go. It's time to love as God loves. Forgiveness is not easy. Love is not always simple. But when we live in forgiveness and love, we live in the fullness of God's grace. And that is where true peace is found. So today I challenge you, take the step, release the grudge, choose love, and watch how God transforms your heart. Because when you forgive, you're not just setting them free, you're setting yourself free. May we walk in love, forgive as we have been forgiven, and reflect the heart of God in everything we do. Amen. The power of forgiveness is one of the greatest forces in the world, yet many struggle to embrace it. When we hold on to unforgiveness, we chain ourselves to the past, allowing bitterness and resentment to take root in our hearts. These emotions do not just affect our minds, they impact our relationships, our health, and even our spiritual walk. Forgiveness, however, is not about excusing wrongdoing or pretending the hurt never happened. It is about releasing the burden that keeps us in bondage. It is a conscious decision to let go of the offense so that healing can begin. Many people believe that forgiving means allowing others to continue hurting them. But true forgiveness does not mean tolerating abuse or restoring broken trust overnight. Instead, it is about freeing ourselves from the weight of anger and pain that keeps us from living in peace. When we forgive, we take back control from those who have wronged us and place it in God's hands. Forgiveness is not always a one-time act. Sometimes it is a daily choice. There will be moments when the pain resurfaces, but in those moments we must remind ourselves that forgiveness is a gift we first received from God. We are not called to forgive based on what others deserve, but because we have been forgiven beyond measure. The power of forgiveness is transformative, capable of bringing healing to the deepest wounds, mending broken relationships, and drawing us closer to the heart of God. Love is not just an emotion, it is an intentional act of the will. It is easy to love those who treat us well, who are kind, and who reciprocate that love. But the true test of love comes when we are faced with difficult people, those who have wronged us, hurt us, or made our lives challenging. Love is not based on feelings, but on a commitment to reflect the heart of God. It is a command, not an option. When we choose to love, we align ourselves with God's nature, for He is love. The world teaches that love should be conditional, given only when it benefits us. But the love God calls us to is sacrificial, selfless, and unconditional. This kind of love does not mean we ignore wrongdoing, but it does mean we choose not to respond with hate. Love has the power to soften the hardest hearts, mend broken relationships, and bring healing to wounded souls. It requires humility, patience, and a willingness to see others through the eyes of grace. Even when love is not returned, we are called to continue showing it because love is a reflection of God's presence within us. Jesus demonstrated the highest form of love when He gave His life for us, even while we were undeserving. That same love should flow through us, not just toward those who are easy to love, but toward everyone, even our enemies. Love is not weakness. It is the greatest strength we can possess. Healing through forgiveness is a journey that many resist because the pain they carry feels too deep to release. When someone has hurt us, our natural response is to hold on to the anger, believing that doing so protects us from further harm. But in reality, unforgiveness only keeps the wound open, allowing bitterness to take root and spread into every area of our lives. The longer we hold on to it, the more it poisons our hearts, affecting our relationships, emotions, and even our physical health. True healing begins when we surrender the pain to God and choose to forgive. Forgiveness is not about pretending the hurt never happened, nor is it about excusing the offense. It is about refusing to let that pain define us any longer. The moment we choose to forgive, we release ourselves from the grip of the past and make room for God's healing power to restore our hearts. Forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation, and it does not mean trust is immediately restored, but it does mean we are no longer bound by the offense. Healing through forgiveness is not always instant. Sometimes it is a process that takes time. Each day we must remind ourselves that our healing is more important than holding on to resentment. As we choose to forgive, we begin to experience a peace that surpasses understanding, and in that peace, God's love fills the broken places, bringing wholeness where there was once pain. God's love is the ultimate model of forgiveness, grace, and mercy. His love is not based on our worthiness, but on His unchanging nature. No matter how many times we fail, He continues to pursue us with open arms, offering redemption instead of condemnation. This kind of love is beyond human comprehension because it operates on a level of grace that surpasses our natural instincts. We live in a world where love is often conditional, given when it is deserved and withdrawn when someone falls short. But God's love is different. It is relentless, sacrificial, and unwavering. He does not love us because we are perfect. He loves us in spite of our imperfections. His forgiveness is not partial, it is complete. When we come to Him with sincere hearts, He wipes away every sin, never bringing it up again. This kind of love is what we are called to reflect in our own lives. We forgive not because it is easy, but because we have been forgiven much. We love not because people always deserve it, but because God first loved us. His love is the foundation of every act of forgiveness, every moment of grace, and every opportunity to extend mercy. When we grasp the depth of His love, it transforms the way we see ourselves and others. We no longer hold onto offenses, but instead we choose to be vessels of the same love that saved us, bringing light into a world desperate for grace. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but of great strength. Many believe that holding on to resentment gives them power over the person who wronged them, but in reality, unforgiveness is what keeps them trapped. It takes far more strength to release bitterness than to cling to it. The world often equates forgiveness with surrender, as if letting go of an offense means letting someone win. But true victory comes when we refuse to let the actions of others control our hearts and minds. Choosing to forgive requires courage because it means confronting the hurt, acknowledging the pain, and making a conscious decision to move forward. It is easy to let anger and pride take over, but real strength lies in humility. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it frees us from being bound to it. It allows us to heal, to love again, and to walk in peace rather than carrying the weight of grudges. There is a supernatural power in forgiveness because it aligns us with God's will. Jesus, in his greatest moment of suffering, chose to forgive those who crucified him. That was not weakness. It was the ultimate display of strength. When we forgive, we break the cycle of pain and take control of our own joy. We become free from bitterness and open our hearts to God's greater purpose. The strongest people are not those who hold onto offenses, but those who release them and choose to walk in love. Living in the overflow of love means allowing God's love to fill every part of our hearts and letting it pour out into the lives of others. When we experience His unconditional love, it changes the way we see the world. We no longer love based on convenience or emotion, but from a place of spiritual abundance. This kind of love is not limited. It does not run dry or fade with time. It grows deeper as we stay connected to the source, God Himself. When we live in love, forgiveness becomes natural. Kindness becomes effortless, and peace replaces turmoil. Love overflows when we stop holding back, when we stop measuring how much someone deserves and simply give as God has given to us. This love is not passive, it is active and transformational. It restores broken relationships, bridges divides, and brings healing to hearts that have been wounded. The more we pour out love, the more God fills us with His presence. It is a continuous cycle of giving and receiving where we are both strengthened and used as instruments of His grace. To live in the overflow of love is to reflect the very nature of God in our daily lives. It is to be patient when others are difficult, to extend grace when it is undeserved, and to choose peace when conflict arises. This is the life we were created for, a life where love is not just something we receive, but something we give without limit. In the end, forgiveness and love are not just virtues to admire. They're choices we must live out daily. They are the key to true freedom, the path to healing, and the greatest reflection of God's presence in our lives. Holding on to bitterness keeps us imprisoned, but forgiveness releases us into peace. Choosing love, even when it's hard, aligns us with God's heart and allows His grace to flow through us. We forgive not because others deserve it, but because we have been forgiven beyond measure. We love not because it is always easy, but because love is our highest calling. If we truly want to walk in the fullness of God's plan, we must be willing to let go of resentment, embrace grace, and allow love to guide our every action. Today, make the decision to forgive, to love, and to live in the freedom that only God can give. When you do, you will experience a peace that the world cannot offer and a joy that no circumstance can take away.